Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to podcast number 6. Now, podcast number 6 is something a bit different. This is really a spin-off or a wash-up meeting of the 6 of us to discuss the recent Wax Off 2023 event. Now, if you haven't seen the video so far, go onto our YouTube channel and have a look. This, combined with that video, really gives you a full picture of what the Carbatics Wax Off yearly, hopefully, competition is going to be about. So we had our first one, and this really is to for you an opportunity to sort of get to know the thoughts and feelings of some of the people that were in the Wax Off competition, look at the rationale behind it, where we're going in the future, and we're going to do something different. We're going to look through the comments on the actual video, and we're going to talk about observations that people have made. And some people have taken the time to comment. We think it's a good opportunity to have a podcast discussion and answer some of those questions and share our thoughts. So quickly going around the room, we've got Nick, who is a TCB moderator. He's also a concourse detailer. We've got Steve McMahon, the Geeky Detail Reviews and TCB co-owner. We've got Lee in the red t-shirt, who is a professional detailer. He was one of the testers on the day as well. We've got Arthur, who is a very, very keen wax collector and TCB admin. And we've got Dave, who is a very, very keen detailer. You've seen him on our Facebook page, and he's always #1 for comments. So as a reward, we've asked him to come along and do the podcast, and you will see him in lots of podcasts in the future. So Wax Off 2023. The main 2 project managers sort of were Arthur and Steve. So I'm essentially going to hand over to Steve firstly to give a bit of background information on what Wax Off is. Then he'll probably hand over to Arthur, who's going to give a bit more detail as to the assessment criteria and tell us who was on board this year. And then we'll go through some questions and have a chat about it. Ask Nick and Lee their thoughts and feelings on the day. And Dave's always got some good ideas. Dave's seen the video, so it's interesting to hear his feedback and just be open and honest, really. This is a discussion between 6 individuals, and we hope you enjoy the show. I sounded like what's his name there? Let's start the show. What's the guy? Pan the organizer. Let's start the show. So, Steve, over to you, young man.
I was just going to say, Andy, don't do comedy. Please don't.
All right, I know.
No.
The beauty is I can edit that out, aren't I? I can edit that out.
But you won't.
No, I won't. You're right.
First, welcome back, everybody, and it's a pleasure to have you back listening and watching. If you are, please go take a look at our TCB video of the day with Wax Stock. But let's rewind back 2019, I believe, Arthur. Myself and Arthur were part of a pro detailer wax mega test, let's call it. Wax, is it dead? For us, enthusiasts, massive enthusiasts, should I say, obsessive and wax collectors, like a lot of us are on the screen now, if you can see it, or if you've just heard who's listening. We reached out or spoke to some of the guys at Speed 6, Adam and the guys over there, through some of those being part of the mega testers with Andreas and a few others, and was basically, talking, is wax dead? Now, we believe obviously not, and to excite everybody in that and encourage brand owners, home brewers, whoever it may be, to basically spark, some more encouragement for these guys to make a one-off wax or submit one of their existing waxes from their current lineup. As wax collectors, as I just mentioned, we wanted a certain critique because we wanted it for a certain reason, and would be for show waxes. Why do we go down the show wax route? Because we wanted the easy on, easy off, and that paint, especially on a colored paint, that you look like you can sort of dive into. So off the back of us and the SpeedSix guys who couldn't no longer take part due to work commitments and everything else, we picked up the mantle and carried on with it. Now, apologies if anybody who entered a wax, because I've had a couple of messages, didn't get their wax shown. Somewhere along the lines, I think one of the guys from the other team moved units, so some of those waxes might have got lost along the way. I believe he would have messaged you personally to cover that off. But for the ones that did enter, thank you. I can only say thank you. Some of the waxes that were entered, as say all of them, sorry, that entered, all won some sort of category along the way, and Arthur will go into more depth on that. But what we wanted to do from this, first and foremost, was, again, to spark the creativity of brand owners, home brewers, and moving forward, we hope this will evolve to 2024 wax off. Please feel free to other brands or homebrewers, anybody who's into wax making, to feel free to get involved. We will release what we're going to go with, whether it's another show wax or whether we ask for a hybrid or whatever. But first and foremost, out the back of this, cracking day. Wax is definitely not dead between us. And yeah, I'll hand you over to Arthur, because you don't want me boring you all evening, just to go into a few of the results. Andy's shaking his head. But then we're going to touch base with some of the guys, as you've heard, that are here, to share some of their user experience of what they found on the day. And obviously, as Andy mentioned, to answer many of the questions that I've received, and certainly you have, Andy, on, why can we get this wax? Can we buy it? Why did it perform? What won the gloss? What won the easy on, easy off? So hopefully we're going to answer some of those questions for you this evening, and I'll hand you over to Arthur. Thank you.
Good evening, guys. Right, so first of all, I'll quickly run through all the entrants, just for anyone that maybe hasn't seen the video. Number 1 was Revive with their wax number 4. Number 2 was from Ollie and Michael, and was an Infinity Wax custom wax. Number 3 was Detail Bug Magnetize. Number 4, Dodo Juice Supernatural. 5, Stjärna Glass Fantastique. Number 6 was from Dan at ODK, and was a custom wax. Number 7 was Sam's Speed Shop Maple Wax. Number 8 was from Jay, previous owner of Bouncers, with a custom wax as well. Number 9, HB Sauce Banana Cortado. And number 10 was Neo Wax number 1. And on the day, trying to keep it simple, there was 4 judges, and we looked for a couple of basic criteria. Firstly, we looked at first impressions of the wax, how they looked, how they smelled, how they felt to touch. We then looked at the ease of use, so the ability to charge a pad, how easy they went from the pad to the panel, and the ease of application, the ability to spread that wax. So, did it soak into the pad? Did it stay in the pad, or did it spread quite nicely across the panel? And then finally, ease of removal. And then we came to the outcome. So firstly, we thought show waxes, looking for that wet look for any paint. And then rather than run down a rabbit hole with 4 or 5 different ones for the outcome, we just went with the wet look and the overall finish. So everyone was looking for something different. And I think that kind of comes through in the results. We were able to test it on 3 cars. We had the grey Transporter, the black Volvo, and the white Audi. And it was up to the judges which car they used it on. And, they could test it on all 3. They could test it on 2. They could even just test it on 1. Although we try to encourage everyone to test it on a number of different panels and paints.
So in terms of the actual experience, Nick and Lee, how did you find this? Lots of criteria, and arguably they're the stereotypical criteria when we're looking at matte waxes. When we all do our reviews, they're the ones that we do look at. But how easy did you find it to differentiate between some of the waxes? Because I went round, if you see on the video, talking to you guys, and some of you found it quite difficult. Nick, how did you find the whole testing experience? Because 10 waxes is quite a lot of waxes to get through, and look at sometimes minutiae detail differences, isn't it? How did you get on?
I really enjoyed it in the fact that I prefer to put, if I'm comparing products, put them side to side there and then. I really struggle with comparing a wax from one week to the next. So to actually have them side by side, and the most complicated thing was one might work on one paint type, whereas it's completely different on a different paint type. So the scoring was very difficult to keep it on the board, across the board, when you're testing on 3 different paint types, and especially as was discussed on the day, One had a contact wash, one didn't. So it was difficult, and I think that was why the scoring was so tight, because they all were good waxes, and there was 1.2 points in every criteria that was the difference over the whole lot. Stephen?
Yeah, I'll just jump in there just to give people a bit of context. There was actually only 11 points between the top and the bottom wax. Now, when I say, just to be clear, the top and the bottom, each wax did win a category. So don't think that one performed better, throughout. They actually won, different categories each, and and shone in different areas. I just wanted to make that clear, because the people that did submit in these wax, brilliant, and thank you very much.
You raised the point there, Nick, about the difference is in cars. It wasn't just about colour, and I can remember talking to, I think it was Lee, and he was mentioning the difference between applying a wax on a decontaminated car felt differently to a non-decontaminated one with a contact wash, one that was contact washes, and even the temperature, because I think me and Steve went around with the temperature gauges, didn't we? And the Audi was, I think it was 41, and I think the black car, the Volvo, was about 69 and 68. Yeah, so the useful bits of information there. Lee, how did you find it? Do you use wax a lot in your professional business? Are you a keen wax user, or is this, are you comfortable with waxes, or was this a challenge for you?
It all depends on what I've got in, really. Whether majority of stuff is either coatings, or I do a lot of work for dealerships. So usually with them, it tend to be waxes. So they just want a high gloss so they can shift them as quick as possible. So plenty of experience with wax regarding that.
Yeah. And how did you find the testing on the? Sorry, go on, Steve.
Well, I was just going to say, obviously, speaking with you, Lee, as well, you own your own shown car, don't you, which you showed. So touching on that, you use the wax, don't you, on your show car?
Yeah,
I believe
on that, whereas the van, which is me daily, has more coatings.
And for the shows, Lee, you always go for a show wax, or do you look at a hybrid?
For shows, I mainly use a show wax. If it was just being sort of sat on the drive or wherever, I'd probably tend to use a hybrid more for longevity. But for shows, I always make sure I'm using a show wax, really.
So wax is definitely not dead for you, as somebody who's a detailer, full-time, part-time as you are.
Yeah, it definitely has its place still.
So I think the results. Obviously we know that the wax number 8 came first, but I think am I correct, Lee? You're the one that didn't vote for number 8 being the winner. Which one did you just have interest? What did you vote for as the number 1? Because it's subjective. We've all got our own ideas and opinions.
On the day, number 9. The only reason why I didn't go for 8 is because I was struggling a bit with removal, but it was where I was actually using it on the vehicles. It was in more contaminated areas, trying to use it where everybody else hadn't already applied the wax.
So you were on the bottom sections, weren't you?
And also being the last 2 waxes I tested, obviously number 8 and 7, I believe. And obviously everyone else had gone beforehand. And obviously the microfibers we were using to remove them were obviously already had plenty of wax residue on them. So I was having a bit of a mare trying to remove it, hence why my scores were down on those specific 2. Whereas the rest of them, I found my scores were higher if I'd used them either first, second, or third.
That's an interesting point.
It played a major factor into it. That's why I was sort of saying I'm looking in for next year that trying to find a decent buffing towel that we could use that would be universal. I think. Trying to give a more fair result.
Sorry, Lee. Yeah, just to touch base on that, just for competition, if you I encourage you to go over and have a look at the YouTube channel. We did use brand new microfibers, which stayed with that wax. And we also used brand new UFO applicators to try and keep it, online as possible and keep it as fair as possible. But I believe what we did do, and again, this was will evolve, that we kept the UFO applicator with the wax. We also kept the microfiber to dust or wipe down afterwards to remove the residue, stayed with the wax as well, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of those might have been loaded up a bit more, but again, we'll evolve. Arthur, jump in.
I was going to say that was what we tried to do, but through human nature, sometimes the buffing cloth would sometimes stay with the judges, and on a couple of occasions I found that Lee found it, So, by no means was our test ideal, but we are, more than aware of how we can make it better straight off the bat. There's a couple of things that we've already said would make wax off 100 times better.
I think on that one, this one was quite with reference to what Steve was saying. We're aware that some of the wax manufacturers had sent these about 12 months ago, so we were quite keen to sort of get this ball rolling, weren't we, really? And we didn't want to wait 2-3 months. Arthur goes away a lot, and he was sort of project managing this. So I won't say it was a rush, but we were keen to get the first one under a belt. And you don't really learn about these kind of things until you've actually gone through the process. And the amount of learning we've taken out of this is considerable. Like Arthur said. So we're going to come to Dave.
First and foremost, Andy, fun. The day was fun. Massive fun, a great eye-opener. And again, I'm going to reiterate, wax is not dead, and we're all keen enthusiasts. And so we'll bring Dave in today, who's an avid wax collector, in a second. But yeah, wax is definitely not dead, and this is definitely going to evolve, and we'll keep it a little more. We're going to keep the fun side of it, of course, but we've definitely learned, and this will definitely evolve.
Yeah, I think I should do a separate video for all the outtakes, because there were a lot of silly skullduggery going on that did not make it to the final video. I'll do a separate video and just distribute it amongst a lot of us, because it was a good fun day. And this is what there's no point doing it if we're not enjoying ourselves. This is about keen enthusiasts, professional detailers coming together and having a laugh. And if we can learn something along the way and try out some new stuff, I think that's a good thing. So I'm going to, like Steve said, I'm going to come to Dave. Dave, you weren't there on the day. You couldn't make it, but hopefully you can make the next one. Being open and honest, you've watched the video. What improvements do you think could be made? What was your initial observation? If you were someone watching the video expecting to see the results of a wax competition, what were we missing? Or do you think we did a good job? What's your feelings on that?
Overall, I think everyone did a good job, to be honest. The thing that stuck out for me was the panel temperatures between the different colour of the cars. Black obviously being the colour that it is, but by nature it's going to retain the heat, it's going to absorb the heat, whereas white reflects the heat. But overall, I think it was a good video. The waxes performed well. I think maybe my view is the scoring. I expected some waxes to become out a bit better than others, give or take the results. But overall, it was it was a good video and it was good results.
Would you have liked to have seen, and I'm going to go through some of the comments, would you have liked to have seen us show the score sheet for total visibility? Would you have liked me to show a picture of everyone's scoring so people could analyse it after themselves?
Yeah, I think it would have been a good idea, definitely. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Go on, Arthur.
So we can make that available. I've still got the sheets. Obviously, I've done a little bit of data analysis on everyone's scores, and I've put that into a spreadsheet. So if anyone's got anything specific they want to see, more than welcome to see it. Yeah.
It sort of links into, I mean, I've got my phone here. I'm just going to start going through some of these. I'm just going to literally read out them and see what we think. So this was a comment, mixed feelings after watching this. It's good to see some brands that I hadn't heard of before. At the same time, if the winning blend was made specifically for this competition and isn't commercially available, then it feels a bit of an anticlimax. Linked into that one, someone else has put, so Bance has supplied a wax no one can buy. I see what they're getting at. I see what people are getting at. And I'm presuming that people are frustrated that it's come number one and they can't try it themselves. So Arthur, I'll come to you first. Valid points. What have we got to say on that?
Yeah, 100% agree. There's nothing more frustrating than being told something's really good and then not getting your hands on it yourself. One of the other things that we wanted Wax Off to be was maybe that little bit of a spark for wax makers, brands who maybe have fallen away from the industry, like Jay. He's had to shut down bouncers. for one reason or another. But if we can encourage people to get creative and get involved, our Dodo Juice gonna do another one of their competitions where they get custom wax makers in, and then they mass produce, similar to how Dan from ODK got into doing it. Are they going to do that again? And the whole point of Wax Off was to encourage something like that. Maybe to get someone who's making wax in their shed noticed. If someone's at home playing around and making something themselves, and they want to submit it, great. Because if they win or they do well in a category, I want a brand to jump on it. I want a brand to push that forward.
Before I come to Steve, I'm just going to quickly, Dave, how did you feel when you heard who won, and then you realised, actually, I can't get hold of this wax. I can't try it for myself.
Just like everybody else, it is an anticlimax, isn't it? It's something that's won a competition that we, the general public, can't try. Is it something that maybe it will become available somewhat further down the line? Who knows? But yeah, I do agree. It's a bit of an anticlimax. I would like to see it come to the market. If it does, it does. But it's one of them, isn't it? My personal opinion, I don't think maybe it should have been in the competition. If it's not available, what's the purpose in showing it in the video?
Just to answer that, Dave, from the first response was we set some basic objectives to ignite wax makers, some of them reignite their passion, also to give some of these fantastic homebrewers a platform for them to be able to show off what they can do, even though they can't fulfill brands 200, 300, maybe 1,000 pots. But I think where we're going with this, I think definitely if the brands are listening to this, if you would like to submit a wax or get your thinking caps on for 2024, I think maybe we could add in that if you are going to be a chance of winning, then we would like on the back of it at least 25 pots to be made. What does everybody else think on that?
Yeah.
We did pull it up on the day talking about like a wax made specifically for Wax Off and a produced wax. We did say going forward there could be potential for doing two competitions on the same day for bespoke wax that's been made solely for, like you said, Stephen, to ignite the passion for wax makers to make something specifically for that. And then on the other side, you have produced waxes that people can go out and buy that are readily available on the shelf. And it feeds both ways then.
What do you think about that, Lee? What's your opinion as a potential customer, someone watching the video? And then I'll give my thoughts, because my thoughts are a blend of what everyone says, really. What are your thoughts about the fact that the winner isn't commercially available at the moment?
I don't know, really. It's kind of one of them. Yes, I can understand why people are frustrated. But also, as Jay hasn't made anything for a while, so maybe it was just to reignite something, an old formula that he hadn't released. So yeah, I can understand why he entered that as something different for something that people haven't tried on the day.
I think Arthur nicely, and Arthur and Steve both set quite clear well, they weren't clear criteria. They basically submit a wax. Okay, there was no shackles, there's no caveats. It was we are giving you, whether you're a home brewer or a brand, an opportunity to submit a wax. Okay, and that's what happened. I do share people's frustrations, and something we can talk about. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if I was a wax producer and I was entering a competition, I would enter my best wax, if you see what I mean. And if that wax wasn't commercially available and it won, I would then be thinking, ooh, I might make this because I could make some money out of this, if you see what I mean. So you can look at both sides of it. I do share people's frustrations, and I didn't really think about it at the time. But You know, if I know Steve's talking to Jay about the possibility, there's no guarantees. There is a discussion going on, and I'd like that discussion to mature, because I want a pot, because I did try wax number 8 and it is fantastic. So Jay can sort it out. But like I said, if a company or a home, you know, submitted a wax that isn't available and it won, that might just trigger that. Actually, we've had a lot of people assess this and it's really, really good. Let's go make it and hopefully sell some pots of wax. So, you know, I do show. Yeah, absolutely.
I hope what you're saying on the back of that, Andy. And obviously, I am, just so everybody is aware, I'm good friends with Jay, so I'm obviously in contact with that for number 8 wax. And hopefully that, you know, will evolve and ignite Jay to make something off for us again. But yeah, first and foremost, it's already sparked conversation. It already spiked that day. The conversations that were going on during that day was brilliant to watch, wasn't it, Andy? Just to listen to the in-depth what people are going, because you know, is scent a thing? Does scent really make a difference? For me, I believe it does. It's part of the user experience, and I like the way Arthur went in with the overall. So I say we'll probably do drop some shares of what Arthur's critique was on the sheet. Maybe Arthur, you can do that and put up a blank sheet for what we were looking for and how to score it, so they can see how we were looking into this. Again, this will evolve and everything, moving and everything else. But you know, for me, scent. If I'm going to spend 3 or 4 hours waxing the vehicle, I want the scent to punch me in the face. Other people maybe not so much, but again, that's why, you know, the variables and user experience comes into their own.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, no, you're right. I would think a keen enthusiast, smell is part of that experience. Someone like Lee, who's a professional detailer who wants to get the vehicles done to the highest standard, is smell really, from a business point of view, smell doesn't make money, does it? The quality of the wax makes money, if you see what I mean. But even Lee, I can remember Lee talking to you on the day, and you were making reference to smell. So is smell relevant to a professional detailer? You're now speaking for the nation of professional detailers.
No pressure. In a way, no, but also it just makes the whole experience of obviously waxing your car a lot more pleasurable, doesn't it? If it's got a nice scent.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And Andy, if I can ask, I want to just step in there. Sorry. We need to pull in Mr. McNish here. Obviously an avid wax collector, who's got a phenomenal, you know, collection. We've seen one of the recent purchases. So Dave, just expect the Swiss wax. You know, we're talking about, I know I'm going off this piece.
You knew this was coming, Dave.
I have to ask, Swiss wax, the crystal or the carat that you bought, what makes a wax for you, being an avid, you know, and spending that sort of money on a wax? And do you know what? Fair play to you. I don't care what anybody says. You can afford it and you can get those. Fair play to you. And I'm only jealous, and I'm sure the rest of us are. But please, just give us an insight into what you look for in a wax, being an avid, you know, massive enthusiast like you are.
First and foremost, I've had a couple of comments since I put that post up. Mainly at the price, the cost of the wax. Now, for me, the cost doesn't come into it. When I first got into detailing, waxing was big for me, and I lost the love of wax for a couple of years, and it's only the last 2 years I've really got back into it in a big way, whereas the collection's grown massively, if I'm honest. But for me, wax is the user experience. For me, is the main goal, and scent, obviously. Like Lee was saying in the video, if a wax doesn't have a scent, I won't use it. Period. End of. It's got to have a scent. If I'm waxing my own cars, for example, I could wax it. It may take me an hour and a half. I take my time. I want the scent. It adds to the user experience. But price point sort of thing, each to their own, is my view. If I want to buy a wax that cost me £1,000, that's down to me. You know what I mean? I have a full pot of Swiss wax crystal rock in the chiller. That was £950. And if you go back in my posts, When I purchased that, I got quite a lot of grief.
Can I just jump in there? I noticed that, Dave, and I was a bit upset about that because your post was just sharing your passion for wax. You didn't say it cost me a £950, and straight
No.
away, all people focused on was
Yeah,
the cost.
It's a lot of the. I get a lot of comments via private message as well as on posts, and I get a lot of comments about the size of the collection, and some of the comments will go as far as saying, "Well, we don't like you posting pictures of your collection because it makes people feel they're not adequate, or you're splashing your money about, or you're showing off, or you're this or you're that." That's not it for me. I am hugely enthusiastic about the whole detailing scene. And as most of you guys are aware on TCB, if I buy a range of products or I buy a single product, I always put it up in a post. That's not to annoy people. It's not to rub anybody's noses in the fact that I can buy it or I can afford it. Granted, we're living in a cost of living crisis at the moment, and people are struggling. But does that mean I shouldn't be able to put a post up and say, I've bought this, I'm looking forward to trying it? No, not at all. But again, you know, I am acutely aware that people, you know, are new to the detailing scene and they haven't got as much money to spend. But I get a lot of it. I do get quite a lot of it, and I get a lot
But Dave,
via as well.
Yeah, but Dave, you work hard. I know, like you don't drink. It's your passion. So for me, why not? I want to see what your next. And so I have to pick up on a point you just made. You said to share a product. It's very rare for you to share a product. You just go straight in and get the whole kit, which fair play to you. And yeah, look, for me, and people listen to this, you're a great guy, Dave. I love seeing your work. I love seeing your collection. Long may it continue. You work hard enough for it. So please share away. Let me see it.
Nick.
I just want to say, Dave, like any hobby or passion, whether it be two I can think of, are golf and fishing. If you're into it and it's your passion and your hobby, you can spend a fortune.
Yeah,
and it all depends on if you've got the possibility to do it. Why not jump in 2 feet and do what you can? If it's your hobby and passion, then crack on.
But it really got to me because, as Steve has just mentioned, I work hard. You know what I mean? I'm up, I leave the house at 5 in the morning and I get home 7, half 7 at night, 5 days a week. You know, I don't sit my arse all day. I don't claim benefits. I never have. Why shouldn't I be able to have these things? And why shouldn't I be able to post about them on whatever group it is? But there's that small group of people who for whatever reason take offense to it, and you know, they feel the need to make it known and to point it out. And I wouldn't say it gets me down, but it sort of puts a negative on the post or whatever.
Dave, I need to interrupt, and I'm so sorry. So tell me about Swiss Wax. Just tell me how good does it smell? Because I'm conscious to get back on wax off, and I didn't say wax off. Just give us a quick little word so before I my fault sending people off down rabbit holes.
Shall I be brutally honest? I haven't even opened it yet, Steve. I haven't even opened it. It was delivered, and it went straight into the chiller. I haven't even opened it yet.
So it could smell like feet, is what you're saying.
It could do. It could smell like fish for all I care. But the point is, and I need to make this point perfectly clear. I don't buy these waxes because they're expensive. I don't buy them so people can look and go, "Oh, he's bought an expensive wax. You know, whatever." I buy them because I am passionate about wax. I am passionate about the whole process, the application, the removal, the user experience, the scent of the wax when applying it to the car. And Sean Murph touched on this a couple of times now. The whole experience of applying a wax to a car. It's not like polishing a car. It's not like washing a car. It's something different. I've never been able to put my finger on it, but applying a wax to a panel, you're on your own, you're out there, it's just you, it's the car, you have your headphones in, you're listening to your music or a podcast or whatever. For that hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, however long it takes you to apply the wax, you are in a different place.
And it's an intimate reaction, intimate interaction.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I remember someone pointing this out. You're waxing a car, you have the time to pick out the imperfections. You notice the imperfections a bit more. If you're waxing a bonnet, for example, you could have washed that bonnet, you could have polished it previously, and you're waxing it, and all of a sudden this stone chip sticks its ugly head out at you, and you think, "Oh, I've never seen that before." Do you know what I mean? It's that intimate experience with the car, and the wax that you're using that's the caveat for me. It's not the price, and it's not the brand. It's not about having the best waxes in the world in the chiller and having a better collection. It's not that. I need to make that clear, because there's people out there who will be watching this podcast who will have seen my posts, and it's not a money thing for me. It's not a brand thing for me. It's an enthusiastic thing for me.
I'm going to move on. I'm going to be quite rigid with this, but a useful discussion and a good opportunity for Dave to, clarify why he's so enthusiastic, which is a good thing. A couple of other points, I'm going to invite Arthur and the rest of the guys back in. One person suggested that we should have had a control wax. Okay, now control waxes are difficult because what becomes that control wax? Do you put Amber BFD in? What is a control wax? But the suggestion is maybe use the bouncer's wax as a control wax for next year. What are your thoughts on that? So the winner of this year is control wax for next year. Arthur?
If there weren't so many variables, then the use of a control wax would work. But for example, just looking at the 4 judges for this year, Lee uses a show wax on his show car during show season every weekend. Nick and Kev sometimes use a show wax on the Cosy. Sometimes they use spray waxes. For me, up until this weekend, I've used show waxes maybe 5-10 times, because for me, when I wax my car, I've got no real reason to use a show wax. So putting a control in, all it would give us is statistical data, not really anything that obvious. So you really have to dig deep into the weeds, and you'd need a much larger test base than what we had.
I think
Nick.
on the day, the saying between all of the judges and the rest of you was personal preference and personal choice. It come up so much that, like you, Arthur, you preferred one because it looked good on your car, and that personal choice. I think introducing a control wax, personal choice would have a vote on whether that is the control wax or not. And I think we'll just, like you just said, Arthur, you just throw in another variable in there.
I think if we're doing, I think if Steve and Arthur decide, they'll probably be running it again next year. There you go, lads, off you go. You've been tasked. And here's a show wax again. I think it is a good idea to put the winning one of this year in next year. I think that'd be a great idea, and just have that evolution. Almost like
you took the words. You took the words out of my mouth. If we're going to have a control wax, for me, it's going to be number 8. Will be the control wax. Yeah. If we go down the show. If we get down the show route now, and I can see Arthur grinning like a Cheshire cat there. Me and Arthur have the same opinion, I believe. I used to use show waxes. I used to use them all the time for show seasons. But since now with the products on, the spray products we can use, which is so easy to use. And for me, with a show wax, when I get to the actual show, most of the time within the Volkswagen transport scene that I follow, you're parking on a field. And the only product or the only issue I find with a wax when you're parking in a field or driving across a field to get to the stadium or the stand, wherever you may be, tends to be on grass. And we know what grass and dust and everything else is like. I always find that a show wax or a wax leaves something there for the dust to bind to. So I'd probably stay away from that. So if we were going to do it again, I would probably move away from the show wax. But again, let's maybe put it out to see what people want. Because if that's the case, number 8 wouldn't be any good as the control, or would it? But I know Arthur, who spends 3 months away and then he's back. For him, he chooses a wax based on the time and the length that he's away to protect him from time to time to get back. And that's right, Arthur, isn't it, for you?
Yeah, pretty much. 3 months away, where my wife drives my car, and it doesn't get cleaned at all in those 3 months. So I need something to last 3 months plus, and then she can have some love when I get back.
On that, Arthur, yeah. I know where you're going with it, Andy. Hold on.
No, I'm not. I'm going to share this with you. Why I'm laughing, and this is not what is you talking about grass, and I just had this snapshot of a flashback. I'm just going to share it anyway. But that joke on Only Fools and Horses when they say, "What do you prefer, grass or AstroTurf?" and the girl turns around and says, "I've never smoked AstroTurf." I don't know why, but I was laughing. I was laughing to myself for the last 5 minutes, thinking, "Don't laugh, don't laugh." Everyone's seen me laugh, so I just had to share that with you.
Only Fools and Horses.
Smoking
Classics.
anything is illegal.
Yes.
Sorry, where were we? We've gone off at tangent there. No, I good. Right, okay.
Go on, Arthur.
So
Go on, Arthur,
just before we move off, if next year, if people want a control, I think there will be a number of arguments to be had about what wax is used as a control, just because of some of the statistical data that has come out of the 4 judges' sheets, which quite a bit of it will be made available on TCB on the Facebook group, and probably a little video on it, Andy.
Good idea.
But actually, the average / overall winner statistically wasn't actually wax number 8.
Elaborate.
So just
Get into the nitty gritty. Let's let the people know the gloss.
47
What was the
minutes
best?
in, and we're only getting to the juicy stuff.
What was gloss? What won? Best user. Obviously, I've got a copy of the spreadsheet, but just give us a little flash into the top 3, or as you say, statistically, it wasn't number 8, but overall user experience.
So because we're
number
talking
8 on.
This is going to please leave because his will come up winner, and he'll think he was right in the first place.
It's all different.
That's the only reason he's here.
So just looking at the data, I'm going to concentrate purely on the outcome because that's what the show wax is all about. So the wet look, the actual winner statistically for the wet look was actually wax number 1. Second was wax number 10, and third was wax number 9. And looking at the scores, we're literally splitting hairs because there's 0.13 between the top 3. I can go further into the weeds of it, but I'm not going to for this. The general finish. Wax 10 came first, wax 9 came second, and wax 7 came third. Again, statistically, there was 0.5 in it for just the finish. And then when you look at the averages of both the wet look and the overall finish, wax 10 came out on top, wax 9 came second, and wax 7 came third. I'm just double checking, did wax 7 come third?
So just to be clear, Arthur, where you're going through those, the overall experience had the overall deciding factor on these all being grouped so close together. That last category, which I think is important that it stays also, had the deciding factor. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%. So just going through them, wax 10, wax 9, wax 7, wax 1, all scored really highly across, finish / wet look. But then when you look at the overall experience, wax 8 was in the mix in that top 3. Looking at overall scores across all 4 judges, noting that Lee didn't like wax, particularly sorry, it's not the fact that he didn't like it. He had a bad experience on the day with wax 8. Wax 9 came out on top on average. Wax 10 came second, and wax 8 came third. So, you know, if we're doing a show wax next year, surely the control wax would be the average winner. But that's an argument for another day.
Yeah.
It is interesting. I think at some point, if we show that data, we could you can derive a lot of that. You'd probably be analysing it quite a lot, actually, which is interesting. I'm just going to go back to a few other bits, and this is for anyone really. Someone's made the observation. Love the unlabeled method of testing. Well done, Steve. Good work there. In a perfect world, you wouldn't be able to see the colour or smell the fragrances. Those can be giveaways. We briefly chatted about how we can get rid of anything like that, and I think Steve, you were talking about sending the pots out. They fill the pots and all that kind of stuff. Do you want to take that one and see how we can answer off that kind of question? That there were clues. Banana Catarda. As soon as Arthur gave it to me, I knew what that smell was, and I knew what it was. But what can we do?
No. You only knew after it being opened 4 or 5 times. If you remember back originally, wax number 10,
X, didn't I? Yes.
You got it wrong. You got it, every single one of you in the question. So let me just revert back. I was the only person that knew what all the waxes were. I had them here with me, and I labeled them up. I numbered them 1 to 10. I was the only person who had the list. And everybody had, and it was brilliant during the day. It really was. As you can see, I'm getting a bit excited by it. Everybody had their own opinion of what it was. And to be fair, every single person that was there that day who had their opinion of what it was, like Andy, got some of the waxes they believe to be right mixed up. Why? Because some of these waxes were sent as sample pots. Now, people assumed that because it was in a sample pot, it was a 50ml offering from a brand. And it wasn't that case. Some of them, for instance, let's talk about number 10 and number 9. I know they're together, not for any reason at all. They were just led out how I took them out of the box. They were both bright yellow. Many people that day got Neo and HB mixed up because they looked like they thought it was HB sauce, and it wasn't. All of you got them all round the wrong way. But because you believe you knew the pot from Hugo and everything else, you assumed, and that was the best thing about it, because people assumed, you actually thought it was that. And then there's a placebo effect that come in. And I noticed it on the day when people were telling me, oh, I think that's such and such. I was chuckling to myself because I knew you had it wrong. So, we can all assume, and placebo, color, and scent. We think we know what it is. And when we know what it is and we take the lid off, it automatically reminds us of where we're going with it. But you are all thrown off the scent, especially, I don't even know what the scent is of Neo, but nearly every single one of you thought that's HBS. That's it. And it wasn't. It was Neo wax. And I don't even know what the scent is. So, yeah, by blanking them all out, it was definitely the best way to do it. And we were doing that again. But, yeah, some of the brands couldn't or didn't want to send it. Even though it was gifted, legally, some of the bigger brands had to send it in their pot. Because it has to carry all the information, directions, and warnings. But yeah, next year we'll give people plenty of warning. Well, we're giving them warning now. 2024. If you want to get involved, feel free to drop me a message or email me, and we can start talks and criteria what we're going to do and everything else. But yeah, no.
So Steve, you got some kind of perverse enjoyment out of it on the day. Then clearly you did.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I did, yeah.
What we could just going into what you were saying, what could be, it's just a suggestion, don't know legalities, but I like to listen. We like to respond to everyone that leaves a comment. Is it within the art of the possible to send them a pot? They fill it and then they send the pot with the data sheet, maybe? Is that a way around it? So we've literally got 10 identical pots. Something you might want to consider. I don't know.
I'm happy to buy pots. And send them out to the brands if that's where we want to do it going forward. And if they're on board with doing that, yeah, I'm all in. Go for it, Arthur.
I was just going to say that's more a discussion with some of the brands. You know, we talked about the logistics of trying to do that when it was TCB and the Speed 6. And, you know, it took over a year for us to realise that it wasn't possible to get the logistics right. If someone wants to tell us that it is achievable, then we'll run with it. But I think at the minute, based on our experience so far, we want to talk about the wax. We want to talk about the colour. We want to talk about the smell, the fragrance. For me, I'd never used HB Sauce Banana Cortado, so I had no idea what it was when I used
Bloody
it.
disgrace.
I know, tell me about it. But you know, that was one of the things that maybe made my data helpful in altering the averages. There was no placebo effect. And when you look at the average scores across everyone, you know, there was no major difference between me and the other 3 testers for it. So could we say that statistically there was no change, even if you thought it was that? But, you know, there was another wax in there that I was sure was something else. And my data probably was skewed because I thought it was something different. But that's where, you know, only having 4 testers, that's a downfall. And next year we want more than 4.
Definitely. Just looking through a few more of the comments. I definitely. I mean, what would be your ideal amount? Are we looking at 5, 10? The more the merrier, because it's quite a lot of work on the day, isn't it? There is a limit to the time and everything, because it was 4 of you, 10 waxes, and it still took us, once we actually got our asses in gear, quite a few hours to do, didn't it?
So there is. What I would actually say is it all depends on the location. You know, our location this time round, the number was perfect. We would have struggled for more. Next year, ideally, if you know the situation allows, we want 10 plus testers. We want 10 plus vehicles. We want different colours, different paints, different stages of decontamination, different levels of prep work. But the logistics of that takes a lot of buy-in from everyone else, because you know it's very hard for just for
Might take the fun away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it was Lee that came up with the idea that everyone takes their own car. So a tester takes their own car and only tests on their own car, because they know what they're looking for then with a certain wax.
I like that idea.
I think then if you change, if you say, I think you need to set the variables before you then decide how many testers you can have, how many waxes you sort of need to set your rules and then work your waxes and testers around the rules that you're going to change from this year.
Yeah, because what we did this time, didn't we? Just so everybody, to give some context, if you see it, every vehicle there had a sheet in the window, which then people could fill in and put, whether it's rear right door, upper right door, near side passenger, front wall, wherever it may be. So I think next time we'll have those, wouldn't we, Arthur? Printed off, ready to go to attach to the vehicle, where people initial and put what wax they've used on each panel, and then obviously with the test sheet as well. Some of those, I know that Arthur's test sheet was done on the day, but the vehicle sheets were done ad hoc. But you know, I know a little simple thing, but that took some time, didn't it? But we can hopefully get that all addressed and squared away beforehand. Again, it will evolve.
I think we've found our location, because our control wax is coming from Dave. So let's just all bomb burst around his house. So that's sorted out. Looking at
ease off it is.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And one for Arthur, you talked about colours. Someone did actually put that in the comments there, and I'll just quickly read it out. For future videos in this direction, I would like to suggest that cars with coloured paint such as blue, green, and red should also be used. Especially these colours benefit enormously from the finish of a good show wax. It's not just about the wet look, but also about the depth, the flake, the pop, etc. So lots of good ideas, but it's like you were saying, it's got to be manageable. We haven't got a week of testing. We've got pretty much one day, and the logistics of getting everyone to here. But I like the fact that people are showing an interest in this. Another one for you, Arthur. And excuse me. People would like a list of the wax that won the best gloss, the easiest to apply, the easiest to remove. Okay, and that's I think that's the kind of information people want. What was the best easy on? What was the best to take? Pad to car and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure we can give them that data before you go off on your travels again, which is good.
Yes, just on those 2 points. I'm quite happy to put up probably the top 3. I think would be a good.
What won, Arthur?
Yeah. Say again.
What did win top for gloss?
We did.
Was that number 1?
We didn't do gloss. We did wet look, which was number 1, and just overall finish was wax number 10.
So that was Revive won wet look. So let's call it deep gloss clarity that we were seeing.
Right,
so it was Revive.
That was joint first with wax number 10. Average. That was average score. Sorry for wet look. With wax 9 scoring just behind it as well. Sorry, I'm just going back through some more of the sheets. Wax number 8 scored. The difference between wax number, eighth place and first was 1. Just one point on average across 4 people.
Is that it?
So, none of the waxes were bad. None of the waxes underperformed. A couple of them, the data is slightly skewed. And I think my honest opinion is it's down to how many testers that we had and their experience.
And personal preference.
Yeah, 100%. Because I know when I was talking about the finish and the wet look, even though I was using the wax on 3 different cars or 2 different cars, I didn't actually use the finish from the Transporter or from the Audi. I was just looking at the Volvo because that's my car. That was the data that I wanted. That's for me as a tester. That's what I wanted to use for my finish and my wet look, and I used the others to make sure that my view or my score referred back to that and wasn't, completely outlandish.
I think an idea, Nick said it, that Lee had about using your own car, because ultimately a lot of people will watch the video, or people that want to test wax is ultimately they want to know what the best wax is for their car. I think that's a cracking idea. It's definitely something we can work with. Well done, Lee. Top mark. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. This is the sort of last one I want to discuss with the comments. Quite an interesting one, really, for all the admin team, really. Really good to hear a couple of companies that I'd not heard of, and there was two brands I've never heard of on the results. If you do get Jay to make a batch of this wax, can I ask for any resale to hit Instagram, because I missed out on the recent HB Source one because they're not on Facebook. So note to self that if Steve does convince Jay to make the waxes, we need to make sure it's available across all social media platforms, because not everyone has Facebook. But I like the fact that people want to buy the woody wax, like me. We've already discussed that. So Steve, work your magic. Work your
already
magic.
on it.
Good stuff.
Already on it.
Excellent. Out of interest, Dave, would you, being a wax collector, if that number 8 was available commercially as a result of seeing that, be honest, would you go out? You'd put an order in straight away, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Dave, let him finish.
Jay, put it on the market for £2,000 because you're going to sell one straight away.
No, I definitely, I think that's a great idea, and if Steve can work his magic and get a few pots together, definitely I'll be on the list.
On it, Dave. On it.
I would.
Lee, would you be interested?
Well, technically, I've already kind of got something similar formulation, haven't I? As I got Jake.
Yes or no, please.
Customer. Yes. All right.
So, Lee, give us a little insight. Have you tried it yet?
Yes. I've tried it.
And thumbs up. I don't want to give too much away. Go on. Thumbs up, thumb down. Is it amazing? like we thought.
It is now that I've realised what my variables were on the day and why I was having issues, and got around that by trying loads of different buffing tiles on different panels and find out what worked. So
and what was your results on your own testing then? Obviously, we know, and let me highlight that again, most of the people left the lower parts, didn't they, to you? And these vehicles weren't fully chemically decontaminated. So you've now spent some time with a wax, which is not the same blend, but similar, because you had one bespoke made, didn't you? Just to make people clear.
Steve's doing a number here, isn't he? He's seriously trying to lead Lee and personal speak on this. Right, Steve, I'll have 5 pots, all right?
Just off the back of that, me and Lee obviously will speak probably every other day at the moment, it seems to be, Lee, but Lee was kicking himself. Weren't you, Lee? Lee, you were kicking yourself on the testing because you were unsure. But as we said, your results were your results. You're right. But allude a little bit more.
At least you're honest.
We did touch on, as testers, that just doing sort of half a panel or a panel, you might have marked a wax down on ease of application or removal. But if it was yourself doing a whole car, by the time you've done one, or like you've just said, Lee, by the time you've done 1 or 2 panels, you get an idea of how that wax is working for you. Whether you take it straight off, whether you can apply a second panel before you take off on the first panel.
That's a good point.
I think, doing half a panel you got that initial scoring. But I think if you'd done a whole side of the car, you might have changed your mind, maybe.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, Nick.
It's just variables and personal preference.
I mean, it didn't. Admittedly, it didn't help on the day I was using it on lower sections of vehicles. Yeah. Just so that I could use an area that somebody else hadn't used, just to trying to factor in as many variables as I could. I don't think that really did me any favors, but you've got to try these things, haven't you?
It was your results, Arthur. Go for it.
So question 1 for the floor to go around, and for anyone else that's listening that wants to put it out there. If a wax isn't, if you can't figure out how to remove a wax within half a panel, does that make it a bad wax? Because for me personally, it doesn't. I've got to spend the time using it on 2-3 panels, like we've mentioned, to work out what works best. Some of the show waxes were, we tested, and we were able to leave it for 10-15 minutes, and we could come back to it and remove it. But maybe its finish wasn't as good as another one that you applied. You started the next panel and you went back and you removed it, and it was a little bit harder to remove, but then the finish was better. So which one would you prefer to use?
Was before you go in there, Nick, was it number 8? And I wasn't testing, but I'm pretty sure it was it. I think I saw Kev was testing number 8, and he applied it, and he was waiting. He was doing the old finger swipe test, and it never got to a point whereby he exposed clean paint. And then was it number 1? It was one of them, and then so that almost traditional Canuba test thing where you apply your wax and do your swipe test and then buff it off. That doesn't apply. That's a good learning, but that doesn't apply to all modern day synthetic waxes. Some of them don't get to a point where the carrier vents perfectly off, and then you swipe it, it's clean paint, you rub off. Some of them you can remove while it's still quote wet, and it might be number 1, but it just came off so easy. And I thought that's something I want to bring up on the podcast, because it's not always the same removal criteria of these modern day waxes as opposed to they used to be. I presume that was number 1 or number 8. I can't remember because I wasn't testing, but definitely one of them was still quote wet when you guys removed it, and it came off so easy. It was ridiculous.
Nick, what were you going to touch on then?
I can't remember now, so it couldn't have been important.
But again, talking just on number 1 there, I did, when I was listening to people's feedback, it was a different consistency, wasn't it, as well, within the tin, the pot. It was quite a wet.
It was really oily as well.
Really, really oily, wasn't it? And I think people, when I was listening, dismissed it on opening the tin, thinking, I don't think it's going to be too oily, it's going to be greasy, it's not going to do anything. And then bang, out of everybody, I think the Revive was spoke about the most, saying I could dive in that paint. Yeah, go for it, Nick.
It wasn't until after all the results had been handed out, a couple of days later, I was in my garage and I've actually got that wax. And I think I said to you, Steve,
Yeah, you did.
I got a sample pot, and because it didn't excite me with looks and scent and things like that, I put it on the shelf and dismissed it. And
There you
now I
go.
realised that was one that we tried, and I think it was Andy walked past the Volvo and went, "Wow, what's been used on that
Yeah.
whip?"
I remember that. Yeah.
Number one, and that's made me
There you go.
think, yeah, because of the scent and the looking at it didn't excite me. I haven't used it. Yeah, it was a cracking wax.
Well,
Good
so
point.
much so that Kev actually took number one, didn't he? Your dad, Kev, took number one because he was so impressed with the results. Yet it's been in your garage this whole time. Look, that's
Exactly.
why I love this sort of testing. That's why this wax off competition for me was a pleasure to be involved with, and one that I really look forward to doing again.
Good, Arthur.
So obviously, just drawing back on some of the analytics of Wax One, for Wax One struggled in that, you know, first impressions scoring, with the exception of one tester, Kev, who thought it was good visual, good smell, and was good to feel and touch. Everyone else had bits they didn't like. You know, Nick's already mentioned that he's got that wax in his man cave, and because it's not visually appealing, and it doesn't smell of anything, it's quite oily and waxy. It scored quite low. I was very similar. Lee didn't like the visuals or the smell, but liked the feel or the touch. So, you know, it just goes to show the user experience plays a massive part.
Yeah.
You know, you then look at how it did. It scored. I said for wet look that scored one of the top scores for me with a 10, just because it was great. You know, just a fantastic wet look finish.
It popped, didn't it? On your black, it popped, didn't it? Noticeably.
It did with the black, but I felt that it actually masked the metallic fleck in my paint. So it was deep, it was glossy, but it killed the fleck.
Wow, that's great results, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I knocked the results slightly because for that reason. It never really made the metallic pop. It just sort of masked that. But it's personal choice. And your car, personal choice on your car again.
Exactly.
All good chat. Right, so I'm gonna be really aggressive today. I'm gonna say that's 1.25 hours, and I'm conscious that I've kept you guys for the last 2 hours, and it's 10:15. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to hand over quickly. I mean, has Nick, Lee, Dave, has anyone got anything else, observations that to make as a result of the wax off, or can I go over to Steve and Arthur to basically talk about quickly next year and we can wrap things up? Are you all good, Lee, Nick, Dave? You got any other anything else to say? You're all good.
I think it just needs a brainstorm of ideas because we come up with so many ideas for next year. It just needs a brainstorm of everyone that was there on the day to try and put together everything that was said and try and remember at the time.
I've got a list.
That planning starts basically tomorrow, and there is a lot of planning. So, Steve and Arthur, keep it brief if that's possible. What do people? Okay, so let's talk about what do companies need to do, what do potential testers need to do. Let's set the scene for next year's competition and how people can get involved. Steve, Arthur, over to you.
So I'm just going to touch on this. Sorry, Arthur, just to say, because you're going away is why I wanted to just jump in and leave you with the final thoughts. Is I don't believe everybody's contacted these brands. Some of these brands were sent out to some of the Speed 6 guys and not direct to me. So I will make contact with the people that have sent them out to make sure that they all know that they've done well and to thank them individually and personally. And then obviously I will make some comms with these people when I thank them to see if they would like to get involved in the next 2024. So yeah, if people do want to get involved, if I take the mantle again for 2024 to be the mediator, to hold the waxes, keep them in the wax chiller, and then I will label them up so they're all blind again, and then we can move it from there. Arthur.
Yes, so quite happy with that because one, we found that obviously some of the waxes were sent in last summer and got warm and got ruined. So it actually spoiled a few people's entries. So the idea that you've got the chiller, the storage, 100% I think you as the orchestrator, or you as the blind, the man in the know, whereas everyone else is blind, I think works really well. Next year, I think because this year was a test year, and we've learned a lot, I think personally we go show wax again.
Okay.
It's encouraged some really good discussions. We've talked about what happens if someone puts in a custom blend, what happens with how we want to run it, what we're going to look for. I think there's too many variables for hybrids or hydrophobic waxes that can't be covered in a day. Whereas show waxes, to start the discussion, get people thinking, I think are perfect for a one-day event.
Can I just step in there just quickly? Sorry to interrupt you, Arthur, just to say, if people want to supply a wax like they did this or for 2023, and it is one off the shelf, we're happy to test that. But if you listen to some of the critique we've given, that's what we'll be looking at again next year. So it doesn't have to be a homebrew or a one-off or a custom blend. You can submit something that is all currently in your lineup. Sorry, Matt, I just wanted to drop that in there.
No, that's fine. What I would say is one of the things that we've learned from this time round is it's an opportunity to try something new, and we're quite happy if a brand wants to use us as a test base for putting something in and doing something different. We said the whole idea of this was to get creative, was to get people talking about waxes. If the biggest drawback from this year is the fact that people can't buy the winner, well, okay, I'm looking at the brands. Who wants to put their money where their mouth is? If people are wanting to buy it, you've got a product. Let's make it happen. I know for Jay it's personal reasons and other issues, not specifically about his products, which are the reasons why Bouncers is no longer with us. But that doesn't stop, these being produced, and it may reignite his interests, his desire to remain in the detailing industry. Next
I
year,
hope so.
Next year, in terms of testing, depending upon venue, like I've previously mentioned, ideally we want somewhere where we can get numerous cars, numerous testers, so that we can generate more information, more user experience, because we've already shown the difference across 4 people, whether it's small or big, can massively change results. The fact that we had the videos going on the day gave people an insight, and a lot of the feedback's been really positive. So if we can make it bigger, hopefully we can make it better. We tried this year to get different coloured cars on. Unfortunately, the people that were there on the day, we had grey, we had black, we had white. There was blue, a really silvery blue colour. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the red car that we were hoping for, and possibly the blue car. If someone wants to turn around and enter a wrapped car, boom, it's something completely different. Offers something that we've not touched on. How many people in TCB have got wrapped car that we can't cater for because none of us have a wrapped car? Something different. If there is something that people want to see, get in touch. We are open to ideas. This is started off as our brainchild. I grew from the Speed 6 idea and from personal chats. But the main point of Wax Off is to prove that wax is not dead.
Hurrah, hurrah. Brilliant. That was quite emotional, Arthur. Well done. I'm welling up. That was perfectly summed up. Troops. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. But I appreciate it's long. the podcast and the video is there to promote discussion. So leave a comment, and any of us will get back to you. It goes without saying, a huge thank you to Steve and Arthur for being the main project managers for this. We've done a cracking job. We have learned a lot, and next year is going to be something really, really good. Thanks, Nick, for being a tester, turning up. Okay, I look forward to seeing Nick at Waxstock. I've got it all right, Waxstock with the Cozzy.
Slims. Slims.
I was waiting. I was going to give you an opportunity to do yourself. Lee, as ever, great to have professional detail on. Thank you for coming over, and you are 100% welcome next year. You know, we're enjoying the friendship that TCB is sort of embracing with you. So really, really good. And Dave, thank you very much for watching the video. I know you weren't there. You've made some really nice contributions, and you've talked about your own sort of personal experience in the detailing world. And our advice to you is carry on doing what you're doing, sharing that enthusiasm. And like I said, people, the naysayers, they're not interested in detailing. They're just being troublemakers in my eyes. So anyway, don't want to leave on a low. But thank you for all of your time. 1 hour 21 minutes isn't that bad. Steve, talk to us about our next upcoming event, and then I'll hit the end recording button. But thank you very much. And I look forward to talking to you all again shortly. So, Steve, wrap us up, mate.
No problem at all. So, again, just to touch, thank you to Revive, Infinity, Detail Bug, Dodo, Stiana Gloss, ODK, Simon Speedshot, Bouncers, HP Source, and Neo for supplying these waxes. I will be in contact to touch base with you and congratulate you and thank you for submitting your waxes. Anybody else out there listening, I will be in contact with you, or feel free to drop in the comments or message me personally through our socials that you know about. On to the rest of 2023. July the 1st, the Slims TCB combined meet. We're having a day at Coventry branch. Please check our socials again in TCB and on our socials. Everybody on here, please share. But yeah, Coventry, Slims, July the 1st. If you can't make that, well, why not? Secondly, Waxstock. We'll hopefully sort to see you there. Then after that, I'll be looking to meet you all and see you all at Caffeine and Machine. I'll be looking at doing. On another little note, I know this is last, and if Andy gets this out, Nick's heavily involved with one of my family, and obviously Nick, if people don't realise, know that we are cousins, and we've got a Farringdon car meet festival of transport, which is taking place on Sunday, Nick, isn't it? Today is the 4th. Of the 6th, so it's next Sunday during the day at Farringdon. Please again check out the socials, TCB. I'll share it on, or my personal and everything else.
The 11th.
Be good.
Sunday the 11th.
Sunday the 11th, yes, at Farringdon, which is SN7 postcode in Oxfordshire. Please feel free to have a look on my personal Facebook page, or Festival of Transport. It's called. It's for myself and Nick's one of our nephew, I suppose he is. All goes towards Great Ormond Street charity. So really, really worthwhile course if you can make it. But again, I don't want to wrap on too long. More coming up from TCB this year. Thank you for all the support we get so far, and long may it continue. Very soon at one of those locations, if not all. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Steve, and we'll see you all at Wax Off 2024 round Dave's house next year with his posh waxes. Thank you.